Have you ever seen someone smile? Their eyes don't smile. That smile is measured by facial muscles, not by the soul. They speak fluently, walk decisively. Their gaze so certain you believe they cannot fail. But then, in a moment of silence, you see something drift across their eyes, a fleeting weariness, a tiny fear, as if they're desperately holding together something about to shatter. Maybe it's someone you've met. Maybe it is you. Sometimes we are not truly strong. We're just good at pretending to be strong. And society calls that confidence. But deeper down, perhaps it's just another survival mechanism born of fear. Try to recall your childhood. Then you were sad, adults said, "Don't cry, you are strong." When you were afraid, they said, "There's nothing to be scared of." When you were angry, they scolded, "Good children don't act like that." Those words, seemingly lessons, were our first emotional programming. We learned that vulnerability is wrong, that only by being silent and controlled would we be praised and loved. So you built an acceptable version of yourself. Always calm, always okay, always certain. You became skilled at pretending to be at peace, and slowly forgot how to live authentically. The psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott called this the false self, an artificial self created for survival, that eventually usurps the true self. The question is, are you living genuinely? Or living as the version most easily accepted by others? There is a curious thing in Western culture. When someone asks, "How are you?" we almost always reply, "I'm good," or "I'm great." Even if that day you are falling apart, exhausted, directionless. That phrase is not meant to communicate emotion. It's a social ritual, a thin layer of paint so the conversation doesn't get too real. We say "I'm fine," not because we are fine, but because we were taught not to show when we're not. Sadness doesn't belong at a work lunch. Vulnerability isn't allowed at networking events. According to Harvard research, over 70% of successful people feel they're faking their confidence. They fear one day others will realize they're not as good as they appear. That is impostor syndrome. But it's not just the successful who wear that mask. We all wear it because society praises strength and quietly punishes weakness. Think about the last time someone asked, "Are you okay?" And you answered, "I'm fine." Be honest, were you fine? Or did you just not want anyone to see you break? Why do we keep pretending to be fine? Even when we're tired, E. Torrey Higgins, father of self-discrepancy theory, says we live between three selves: the actual self, the ideal self, the ought self. The gap between them is where insecurity breeds. To fill that void, we put on performance confidence. A way of speaking, a posture, an attitude meant to convince others we are fine. But live in that armor too long and your brain starts to believe the role, disconnecting from real emotion. Ever felt like you were speaking, but not hearing what you were saying? Laughing, but no longer knowing why? That is emotional detachment. A numbness common among those who are always strong. We think we're living, but we're just executing a pre-programmed script. Fine, busy, strong, successful. The Western world worships confidence. Be confident to get promoted. Be confident to be loved. Be confident to exist. But deeper down, society fears vulnerability, because vulnerability forces the mirror back on them. On social media, we post smiles and highlight moments, not the lost moments. We see the successful and think they never doubt themselves. Actually, they're just better at hiding it. And like a chain reaction, we hide too, because who dares to be the first honest voice in a room that only wants glory? Try answering "How are you?" with "I'm not doing so great." Watch the room freeze. Society doesn't know what to do with the truth. We wear the mask not only to protect ourselves, but to protect the comfort of others.
Nietzsche said, "The mask doesn't only conceal, sometimes it lets a person endure himself." Maybe we wear the mask not to deceive, but to survive a world that demands stability. But eventually, the mask grows heavy, and you ask, who am I living for? What am I protecting? If you take off the mask today, who will leave and who will stay? Perhaps fewer people than you think, but the ones who remain will be real. And more importantly, you will remain with yourself. True confidence isn't born from praise. It's born when you no longer need to prove anything. No need to speak loudly. No need to grab the spotlight. Just knowing who you are. That is enough. If tomorrow you no longer had to say, "I'm fine," no need to smile it away. No need to strain yourself to make others believe you're okay. How would you feel? Maybe you'd tremble. Maybe you'd feel empty, like a part of you just stepped out of the role. But that's the first moment you begin to be real. Truth doesn't weaken us, it frees us. Only when we dare to face our most vulnerable part can we touch our true strength. So next time someone asks, "How are you?" pause for a second before answering, because maybe "I'm good" is no longer what you want to say, but what you once had to say to feel safe. You don't have to pretend to be fine to be loved, because only when you dare to be not fine will you truly begin to live as yourself.